Hello, everybody. Welcome to Trusty's Vintage Deep Dive. Been several weeks since my last one. Since 2 weeks ago, when the last one was scheduled, we had to cancel at the last minute due to a scheduling conflict with my guest, and still trying to reschedule that one. But tonight we have Laura Bemos of Bemos Mercantile has returned to Trusty's Deep Dive, and she is going to be talking to us about, again, one of those areas that she talks about a lot in the chats, and she is always on the lookout. Buying in live sales is vintage playing cards. So tonight our deep dive is going to be on vintage playing cards, and we'll dip a little bit into card games, sticking with the vintage, getting a little bit of history, and definitely talking a little bit about, from a reselling / collecting standpoint, brands to look for, categories, conditions, things that we should be on the lookout for, and possibly building our own collections or passing them on to others. So let's see who we've got in the chat today. We've got Katie from Vintage and Vinyl. Katie has done a couple of deep dives with me now. She did the very first deep dive ever, was a typewriter tin deep dive. So definitely go back into the logs and check that one out. And she also did a more recent one on vintage vinyl. We got Carrie from Austin is on KC Addicts. Jeannie from Norma Jean Plus One. Thanks so much for joining us, Norma Jean from North Carolina. Vintagerous is coming in representing Canada. So if you notice, I just posted a video yesterday regarding some of the donations I've been receiving for the fundraiser, and Vintagerous, Joni from Vintagerous, was one of the very generous resellers who has donated items for my upcoming fundraiser for the Just One More Dachshund Rescue fundraiser on November 12th. We got Tania from Hemlock Lady Mercantile. She will also be returning to my channel this coming Thursday. I will be doing another group sale, and Tania will be part of that. We'll be part of that live sale on Thursday night at 8 p.m. Eastern. So definitely join back for that. Little Vintage Me 64 is also on. Thanks you for joining us. She just recently posted a video where she showed off her vintage brooch and pin collection, and the way she displayed them was very cool. So definitely check out her channel and subscribe to her. Oops, somebody went to Round Top. I've always wanted to go to Round Top, so I don't know who's the one that went, but hopefully somebody enjoyed it. Got Beth from Carolina Princess Sweet Treats and Pretties. She was on our deep dive, or she was on a live sale last week. So great to have her joining us again. Angela Marksbury, I just lost her, but Angela Marksbury, she's relatively new, just actually bought from me in the last live sale, and she's a Chicago local. So always nice to have the locals with us. Butterfly Nurse, thanks for joining us.
She's a grandma now.
Oh, congratulations. Found Again, Kelly, she was with us also in a live sale recently this month. She's doing her very first live sale with me. Sandy and Otto, Trisha, I think, is her real name, but Sandy, she does live sales as well. Karen, Karen's Vintage and More, thanks for joining us. And This Overstuffed House, thanks for coming back. I've seen you on many of the chats before. So want to go ahead and get things started. Got a good number in the chat tonight, and hope we'll have some fun. So we're going to start with basically, I asked, excuse me. I asked Laura to do a kind of the history, talk a little bit about, just kind of some backgrounds on playing cards. But then also we're going to very quickly get into, hopefully what probably some of you are actually looking for is information. Just, we run into them all the time, and I definitely have samples, things we may be talking about tonight. Laura's got all kinds of samples. Really, how do we know what we're looking at? So I'm going to bounce the floor over to Laura. And for those of you joining us, if you've never participated in a deep dive before, just be aware this is an interview, not a sale. So although we will both be having items that we'll be displaying, these are not items that are necessarily up for sale. In my case, most of them will actually probably end up for sale, either in my booth or in my upcoming live sales. Laura may or may not be selling hers because she does collect these. So that's what these deep dives really are for, is collectors who are really knowledgeable about their individual categories. So they may not be for sale. So don't be disappointed. You're here to hopefully learn a little bit and have some fun. So that's going to pass things over to Laura.
Hey guys, I just want to, for all of you who were at the Domino's deep dive, and I told you that Domino's passed into cards, here is that example. This is a set of bicycle cards, which are actually Domino's. So we discussed history on Domino's. We're going to see that crossover again here in playing cards. So there's one example. Now, the playing cards were invented way back. We're talking about 9th century AD by the Tang Dynasty is the first. It's the first writing of any playing cards being in there. And then the one thing that's really interesting here is you do not see a lot of, back in 9th century, women writing books. The first book that was actually written on a game, and it was called Leaf, was written by a Tang woman. So that's very interesting in the playing cards. And if you look at any other history in playing cards, you find that women were the main source that they advertised cards to. And it's because they were usually at home, they got together with other women, and so all of the companies would start advertising to women. So that part is very interesting. We discussed the Song Dynasty in Domino's, and during that dynasty also the Leaf game continued. So it's very interesting that those things would come up, and they were in the same area. Of course, we're starting off in China again, and that these games are revolving around that far back. The other games, once you hit about 1067, you find that the games are now involving alcoholic drinking, and then you come into the gambling. And way back when, that's what they were doing. So then you see that William Wilkerson suggests that the first cards were actually a paper currency. Now this has to do with gambling. So the cards were actually a type of currency that they would use in their gambling. So to think of cards as being a currency is really unique, because it was just paper money that they were gambling with, and then whoever won took home whatever that was. And apparently they could use it in other places. The one thing that I find very interesting is no Googling. Absolutely no Googling. Tell me how card companies supported the military soldiers as far back as the Spanish-American War. Anybody have any idea how that happened?
When you say supported, what do you mean?
Well, there is the card company, which is now or was considered United States Playing Cards, which is the main company that did all the cards. There was a way that they actually supported the military. They actually got with the American government, and they were doing things that involved playing cards. I can't say too much because I would give it away.
So I'm going to mute myself because I don't know. The one thing that I thought of is I know that in Great Britain during World War I, there's something known as the Queen Mary tin and there were, in some cases, gifts sent to the soldiers, but it was like a one-time thing. It was just a Christmas gift. So that was what I was wondering if that's what you meant, but you sound like something totally different. So I am going to mute. I'm going to mute and hide myself.
Well, do you have anybody? I'm not seeing the chat, so is anybody?
So we've got the comments that are coming in is one of the questions was basically were they supporting gambling, and
No.
then or did they donate decks of cards to the soldiers?
They did donate, but they donated for a reason. No, not strip poker.
No strip poker. So Tania, good try, but not tonight.
No.
So it does not look like we've got anyone who has this background information. They are okay. We got one more popped in. I guess they donated cards as easy small item to carry. So you said they did donate
cards. But what it is they got with the American government. Originally, what they did, they actually supported them in two ways. The first way is they got with the American government, and actually the backs of the cards, like now you would see, such as this Delta Airlines or United Airlines or whatever, they actually did spotters on the back of the card. The spotters were so that the soldiers, military, could recognize enemies and let people know where they were. Okay, so that's one way. But the most interesting way is cards were given to POWs. Now that I've said that, how do you think they supported them? If the cards were given to POWs.
Supported American soldiers or supported the POWs?
American soldiers. Yes. They were given to POWs during the Spanish-American War, World War I, and World War II.
They were marked cards so that our soldiers could always win when they gambled. Nope. That was my guess.
No. What they did is they actually embedded escape maps in the cards. So what the POWs would do is they would get the cards. Everybody just thinks it's a deck of cards. They would moisten the cards, peel back layers to reveal the escape route where they could get out. Very interesting.
Right before you started explaining that, we did have a guest come in from Vintage as secret messages. So and Katie came up with the same thing. My StreamYard chat is slightly delayed, so I couldn't grab them in time. So but no, that's actually very interesting. I was not aware of that.
That is a very interesting part of cards. And obviously this was before the modern cards were made, because today, even these, this is an open pack, I believe. Even these cards now are plastic and have plastic coatings. These aren't open. These are opened. They have, they feel like plastic, and they actually have a plastic coating, so you wouldn't be able to make them moist and peel back layers. So you're looking at a card that was strictly paper, and they were made so that that you couldn't tell anything, but once you started getting them wet, you would peel back the layers, and the escape routes were actually in there, along with stuff like rendezvous points and everything else, in case they did get out. So that's a very interesting part of history and playing cards. Something that you wouldn't normally think of as the American government going to a card company and saying, hey, is there a way to do this? And that's what they came up with. So it's really interesting. I love that part of it.
Did they focus on one card manufacturer, or did they go to multiple? Like, is there only one that's known for that?
One. Yes. And it's because the main card company in the U.S. was called United States Playing Card Company. Now, originally their name was Russell Morgan. Okay. And they started acquiring little playing card companies. just the little printing companies all over the place. And so they became this huge playing card distributor and manufacturer. And they currently, I won't say currently, in June of 2019, they were just sold to a Belgium group named Cardamundi. And that's where they not only sold off every single playing card that they had, but they also sold off the Kentucky plant and the plant in Spain were both sold to the Belgium company. So currently, unless there's some very, very tiny company out there, they aren't made in the U.S. anymore. Everything will be made in Belgium.
We have a question that came in from Cheryl Ross: is how did they get the cards into the camps?
Haven't been able to figure that out yet. My guess would be from, if you have somebody who was captured and then other people are captured, my guess is they started handing out those playing cards earlier, to where when they ended up inside as a POW, they ended up with the cards. It's not real clear because that would be military intelligence, and they're not going to tell us that. But they did tell us that that's how they got maps to POWs.
And so you're saying this is around the turn of the 20th century, so late 1800s,
yes,
beginning 1900s. So one of the questions was, did this continue? Question from Little Vintage Me 64. Did it continue into other wars as well?
Weirdly enough, it stopped after World War II. So they did it during the Spanish-American War. They did it during World War I and World War II.
Okay.
But there's no mention of it in any of the wars after that.
Now, this might be tipping your hand. I didn't even mean to do that, but this might be tipping your hand a little bit, because I'm sure you're going to eventually get into this. But since we're at that point in history, Katie from Vintage and Vinyl is asking for clarification that before there were numbers on the card, is it true that there were just pictures because people were illiterate? And so I'm curious, timing wise, by the time we're doing the secret maps and everything, right, have we already gotten to suits and numbers?
Yes, to suits and numbers. The suits and numbers would actually come about in the, let me see. I have so many different things going on here. In the suits and numbers as we know them today would have come around at about the early 1800s. And then the second half of the 18th century is where you see the reversible court cards. So you start seeing the King, Queen, Jack coming up. Okay, and then each country had, a lot like dominoes, each country had its own games. And there are just so many of them that you can't possibly figure out what all of them were. I have, here's a very old set of cards. I don't know if you'll be able to read this, but it's Flinch Card Company, Kalamazoo, Michigan. These are from 1913. I honestly don't know how I acquired these, but this set is currently on eBay for $100. Okay, and this isn't even a real deck of cards. This is a game that was developed by this company. They were a toy and card company. They look like regular cards, except for this is where you're going to start seeing numbers on cards in this area. So this, from what I can figure, this game is like what people play today as War, where you have to get rid of the entire deck of cards. This seems like it's a version of that. But these are actually from 1913, from this little bitty card company that was in Kalamazoo, Michigan. You'll see that this is the oldest set that I have here. I kind of branched off when I was collecting, and I have branched off into Congress playing cards. And Congress, the United States Playing Card Company, actually, like I said, was originally Russell Morgan Company. But what they did is they just started eating up all of these little companies all over. And that's how they became they actually had a monopoly. They were the only known manufacturer. I'm sure there were little bitty card companies out there, but they were the ones who were doing it all. And the funny thing about this company is all the card companies under them are Bicycle, Hoyle, B, Congress. I'm sure you guys can think of other card companies out there, but they were all under this umbrella. And Congress playing cards they have a special finish on the cards, and I wish you guys could feel them because they're completely different. And it's called cellutone. And one of the reasons that I got into the history of playing cards was because the one day I had already started my collection of playing cards, and like most people, I had picked up, United Airlines. This is another United Airlines, a cruise company, another cruise company, yet another one, all kinds of these cards. And I ran across this company called Congress, and they had an ad which said it was cellutone. So me being the place that I go to for everything, George, I sent a text message to George, and I said, do you know what cellutone is on playing cards? And he wrote me back, and he's like, no, I don't. I've heard of it, but I don't know what it is. Why don't you go look that up, see what you can find on that, and email me back. I was like, okay, here we go. Dominoes, now we're on cards, down the rabbit hole. And that's when I started looking into history of cards. But this is a cellutone card, and it's from Congress, and they don't feel like plastic. They're much thinner, and they glide. It's a very smooth finish. These were marketed to adults. They aren't the cards that you would pick up for your kids to play with, because Congress was very expensive compared to all the other companies. So these were the cards that they would market for bridge, canasta, pinochle, all of those cards. And so they have great advertisements too. And here I actually have some advertisements for Congress. And
Was Congress originally part of the Russell Morgan Company, or was this a competing company?
no, Congress was originally part of them. They were a Russell Morgan company from the beginning. But here you go. Can you guys see that? This is a Congress advertisement. Could you hold a better hand? Okay, there's one. And you will see all of these are definitely being said that these are adult cards. There's another one. There's a go in the game with Congress cards.
And when did these first come on the scene?
These were on the scene in the late 40s and 50s. There's another one. Kind of shows you their back designs. And Congress was one of the very first companies that actually hired artists to do the backs of their cards. So they normally did not do advertisement And everything I read said that they did not do advertisement like a Delta or a United Airlines or anything. However, I do have one set of Congress cards right here, and they are advertising the 1982 World's Fair. This is the only set of Congress cards that I have ever seen that have any kind of advertisement on them. And even the cards have the World's Fair on them. So it's not common that they would have advertised, because these were strictly, like I said, adult cards, not geared towards children because they were too easily torn up. Congress cards usually come in, you'll see all of these boxes are like the velveteen boxes. They all have the little pull-out drawer. Even their bigger sets, like this one is a double deck. Okay, this one is also a double deck. I'm looking for the one that has, because they manufacture bridge and canasta and pinochle. Those were like their main. This is a pinochle set right here. And if you guys are wondering what's pinochle, and then here's the canasta set. Obviously, pinochle and canasta take 2 decks. Bridge also takes 2 decks. The reason bridge takes 2 decks is because you want to rotate your decks. The reason that they're a pinochle card, pinochle cards are, it's a game played with 48 cards, 2 of each, 9, 10, Jack, Queen, King. Okay. Now, the bridge cards and the canasta cards, or poker cards, because canasta are also poker, they are a 1/4 of an inch skinnier. Based on poker is the larger, canasta would be the, pinochle would be the smaller version. And I've actually lined them up, and yes, you can see this tiny little bitty bit that sticks out.
Is that unique to Congress, or is that all cards?
That's throughout every card company. That's the way that they would distinguish the cards, is because one was off by a 1/4 of an inch.
And pinochle also is the one, I remember that from my parents used to play it when I was a kid. It doesn't use, did you say it doesn't use the smaller?
No, it only uses 9, 10, Jack, Queen, King.
So if you buy a pinochle deck, it will not be, like, you wouldn't be able to play solitaire with a pinochle deck.
Well, the funny thing is in pinochle, your backs are supposed to be the same, which leads me to believe that this is not the proper pinochle set that was in here, because this set should actually only have, oh no, yep, cannot play solitaire. No, they are strictly 9, 10, Jack, Queen, King, but they should have the same backs, because that way you can't really.
Right. So you can merge the deck.
Yeah.
Did you say the canasta takes 2 decks as well?
Canasta does take 2 decks. It uses both decks. I don't know how to play canasta.
I actually have one of my few show and tells. I actually have an old box. This is actually, my parents had this when I was growing up, and I stole it when I left. So it is a canasta playing card tray. It still has, I used to play canasta. I don't remember anymore, but they still have the instructions. And then I believe this might be Bakelite, but it might just be plastic, the tray. So I don't remember, I couldn't remember if it was 2 decks of cards, but I had a question that came up that is
formaldehyde.
I don't think it does, but it smells like dust is what it smells like. But related to your comment about the 2 decks, I wanted to ask another question. in cases, well, I'll show. I had a couple of examples of just not the Congress boxes that Laura's talking about, but I had like the plastic cases. One of them is Starcraft plastic coated. Two questions related to these boxes. So you're talking about Congress and the double decks. Is it common for the double deck boxes? Should both decks match? Because in every case, mine are like what the ones you showed, that each deck is a different back. They're like related, that they look similar. So if you're looking for a true double deck, would it be a seal? If you had a sealed double deck, would those both have the same backs, or did they sell them as just double decks as pairs, like to look pretty?
Well, like canasta is not going to have the same backs, and I don't know enough about canasta to know. I know it takes two decks, but I don't know if you play with both decks at the same time. I know you do in pinochle. My parents and grandparents used to play pinochle every single Friday and Saturday night. So, like, these aren't the same color, but they are the same pattern. So I guess unless you were a really good card counter, you may or may not. But see, they're basically the same pattern, just two different colors.
I did just pull out the instructions for at least for canasta, and it says the game is played with 2 regular decks of 52 cards plus 4 jokers, all 108 cards being shuffled together.
Okay, yeah.
So that would be 2 identical decks.
2 identical, yeah. And my canasta are not identical. As a matter of fact, they are far from being identical. So.
Well, and then that's a related question too, one that I came up with, because in my case, like the plastic case I just showed, I'm sure there's not a huge value in the cases, but when I opened the cases, like the one actually says it's a brand of cards, but the cards that were in there were not that brand. So is there any value in the cases themselves? And or is there any issue, like if you have a Congress box but you don't have Congress cards, is there still value to the Congress box, or is it really meaningless?
Yeah, because the Congress cards are what everybody wants, and they want them because of this special coating that's called cellutone. And let me tell you what, this sucker must be top secret, because I cannot find anything. Oh, both of my decks are sealed in here. That's why I can't get them out. I cannot find anything on what cellutone is. All I know is that cellutone is exclusive to Congress. And even though they were made in the exact same manufacturing plant and everything as Bicycle and Hoyle and B and Maverick, and I'm looking around to see what other brands I have.
Actually, let me throw in a question because I'm trying to find it. You just said the magic word. Jeannie Lyle joined us, and she was actually specifically asking about the brand names, and Bicycle was one of the ones that she mentioned. Is there significance to any? So you said Bicycle was also part of Russell Morgan. Yeah.
Yeah.
So was it nothing more than just a cool name, or was there any?
Yeah, they made. They were considered a lower end because they were plastic coated, so they were more durable. So they were less expensive than the Congress. The Congress are by far your most expensive cards throughout the history. And it's because of this cellutone finish.
And if we jump ahead a little bit, we're going to read the last chapter first. When you're talking about most expensive in a resale market or in the markets that we would be working in, what price differential would you hold a sealed deck of vintage Congress cards compared to a sealed deck of Liberty cards or Arco playing cards or something like that?
Congress should be at probably double the price.
Double, okay.
Yeah, double the price. Like I have the plastic box here of United Airlines, I believe. Yeah. And they're sealed, but you can get these on eBay for a couple of dollars. They're not expensive at all. Hoyle, I know you have a Hoyle example. The only Hoyle example I have are these little bitty mini cards. But I know, Patrick, that you have a Hoyle, a larger set of Hoyle.
Yeah, before we jump to that, so you held up your plastic case as well. Beth from Carolina Princess Sweet Treats and Pretties is asking, do the types of cases help date the cards? And is there a general rule of thumb of when the cards started being in the individual packs versus those plastic cases?
Well, yes and no, because the cases of cards do not date cards. The way that you date a playing card is going to be a lot of the same way that I told you guys about dating dominoes. It's going to be the company that made them, and then you look into, like, let me see. This one is Delta Airlines, and this is a unique pack, and it's one of the reasons that I bought it, because Delta handed these cards out, but look what else it advertised. It advertised Las Vegas. Okay, so it's a double. People who collect Las Vegas stuff would want these cards. People who collect Delta or airline stuff would want these cards. But really, these cards are produced by who knows what company. Doesn't even say. But they're cheap cards. I mean, they're cheap because they were advertising pieces that people they handed out. The companies handed them out. Same thing with, I know you have a set of casino cards. This is the casino I have, Club Arena, and they're plastic coated. Usually there's a thing over the top, I think Patrick's has it, that said that they were used at this casino. Mine doesn't have it. Mine's falling apart. But this Reno Club is older. Yes, like that.
So this is from the Hard Rock Hotel and Casino, and then it also has a window in the box that shows the back of the card, so it shows it actually has the Hard Rock. One of the things that I was talking to Laura about, the benefit of actually planning these, I get to ask my own questions in advance, is several of these decks of cards that I came across. This one specifically says that it was at the Hard Rock, but some of them just say this deck of cards was played at quote this casino. Yeah. And in some cases, the window is not showing what the casino was.
Yeah, mine didn't have a window.
Yeah, so this, and then the other thing which I found interesting, because she said that, who did you say make all the casino cards?
Kim currently.
So Chem makes the correct, but this was put into a Paulson box.
Yeah.
So this is a case where do you remember how many decks of cards does a poker table or a blackjack table play? Something like 20 or something like that?
Yeah, they play 20 at a time.
So you can't card count.
Right.
And so when they split those decks apart, they just grabbed, this is just a generic box. Yeah. So it says Paulson playing cards, but because it's got the casino on there, it would be the Chem playing, which I don't know if that makes them any more valuable, but what would be the difference between a sealed box of casino cards versus an unsealed box of casino cards?
Unsealed box, you're always going to look at it being less. Any of my boxes, and it doesn't matter what kind of cards they are, like here I have Maverick cards, 2 sets. These are going to be worth more than a Maverick set that's opened. So
twice as much, 3 times as much?
Probably twice as much.
Twice, okay.
Yeah. And then, like, I also have, so those are Mavericks. Just go through some. You have this set of cards. And again, a lot of these don't have the maker on them, but this is the Scottish pictures. So this is Scotland.
It was actually a question I was going to ask you because I'm in the same boat. I have a couple of sealed boxes that the box themselves do not say who made the card, But if you open the deck, and this is just for everyone's benefit, if you open the deck, typically the ace of spades is going to actually give you all the manufacturing information. So if you've got a sealed deck, how do you know, is there, without breaking the seal, how is there any way to figure out which cards they are?
You don't. I mean, you kind of, because this one is not sealed. Now, this is an interesting one because this, and they used to put all kinds of advertisement on cards. Obviously, this is a monument company, but this is an open deck. But it has, the only thing it has is about the monument company. So like you would do in Domino's, you'd have to research this company. When were they in business? Are they still in business? You know, see if you can find when they would have given out decks of cards like this. Find it almost disturbing that a monument company is giving out playing cards. I don't know.
Something to do at the funeral. So question would be, for something like that particularly, I personally have also some advertising cards. What I have are Mr. Magoo advertising GE light bulbs, but all I have are 2 sets of cards with the jokers from each deck. For something like the Monument Company, that would be something that was maybe of a local interest, would probably have some attention. But from a nationwide side, what would a deck of cards like that? You've got an advertising card for something that most people don't collect in an area that you're not going to know in an unopened or an already open deck. What kind of value would something like that have?
I think I paid $2 or $3 for that deck, and that's about a going price for an open deck advertising. If it wasn't open, you're probably looking at more like $4 or $5.
Now, if it's an open deck of, say I had the entire deck of Mr. Magoo advertising GE light bulbs, so that's a broader, it's probably a broader collecting appeal. I'm sure people probably either collect Mr. Magoo, Michelle Ann actually loves Mr. Magoo, or they collect the GE light bulbs. So if you've got, so now we just make one change, the advertising changes, and it's now something more collected, but it's still an open deck. What would that be worth?
An open deck, well, here is the interesting thing about playing cards is they actually have their own scale. Okay. Now, it doesn't make it any easier, believe me. But how to date playing cards, okay? Manufacturers, which is same thing that I told you with Domino's. Look at your manufacturers when they were in business. Barcodes, back designs. And playing cards are different in that. A lot of the back designs, you can possibly help figure out when they would have been due to what the pictures are and how they were colored. Barcodes, of course. An interesting one is the tax stamps. Some cards have tax stamps on them. Manufacturer seals. And then here, zip codes. Look for the zip codes on the advertisement. Now, this is from the United States Playing Card Company. And you will see here that these guys put a letter on with a 4-digit number, okay? And when you find that letter, you can go across to see, was it around the 1920s, 40s, 60s, 80s, or 2000s? And like prior to 1920, you're gonna see numbers like, of course, 1904, 1905, actually year codes on them. And then the letters that go, you can, if you have a D with a number, you can go across and try and figure out when they were done. That one.
And this would be on what? On the ace of spades, on the box? Where would this letter be?
It would be on the ace of spades, yes.
Okay.
But this was one company doing it. And they acquired all the little companies. But before then, you wouldn't know what those companies were putting out, because this is what United States Playing Card Company did. It doesn't mean they were done on all of the other brands. The other thing that you will find is tins. Now, tins go for more money because of the tin. Again, you're advertising. So, Jack Daniels, you know, this is a tin that these cards are open. So, this isn't going to be worth as much, but your collector is going to be Jack Daniels, and the tin. So then you have this one, which this was made in Czechoslovakia. Now, just before I came on, my very large cat decided to jump and he knocked one of these out. And I'm sure it's under me somewhere. But this is a double deck in a tin. So something like this unopened in a tin is probably going to be more in the range of $8 to $10 because of the tin and because they're unopened. And you're talking about a completely different card company out of Czechoslovakia. Who knows?
So one of the things we had talked about, because I want to be sensitive to time, because believe it or not, we're already a quarter till the hour. So I know you've got a lot more to cover, but because we had touched on it, we had talked a little bit about the different things that people can collect. Yeah. You had mentioned to me prior to starting is that for the advertising side, I did have those Mr. Magoo, right, just the Jokers.
Yes.
And you said that that's actually a subset of collecting?
Yes. Actually, the first card collectors collected only Jokers. And that's why you'll find a lot of decks out there where the Jokers are missing. And it's because people were collecting just the Jokers, the different styles of Jokers. So you have, just like dominoes, you have your collectors. You have your collectors that want it for the advertising. You have collectors like me who are maybe getting into only one brand, even though here I have several because of when I started. You have collectors that are, maybe they like the different, like, trying to find us one, because one of my sets has like pictures of like pottery and stuff on it. So those are actually pottery sets. So you might have somebody who collects pottery also starts collecting the cards because those have the different styles of pottery on them. You have people that collect, like this is a completely different game. They're made to look like regular cards, but this is Wheel of Fortune. So they may collect specialized games. This is called Game of Phones. It's an interesting game. You have a golf game. You have a CSI game. Then, of course, you have Old Maid. You have one called Piggy Bank.
One of the questions that we had came in goes back to going into some of the older cards, and maybe this is for older games. Are you familiar with RPAC no revoke playing cards? That they are black sided?
Yeah.
Was that just a design choice, or yeah. Okay?
It was a design choice, just like Congress actually has two numbers of playing cards. They have a 606 and a, what's my other one? 501, I think. The 606 is the one with the gold edging. Just like this one right here. See the gold around the sides of the card?
Oh, okay.
It's coming off as silver, I think. But it's actually gold.
We had also had a couple clarifications coming in on the size of the cards. So you said the ones that were slightly smaller were pinochle. Right. So bridge would use the same size as
bridge and
poker.
Canasta and poker are the same size.
Okay, and so pinochle was the smallest one, and then Katie had, and I can't find it. So then Katie asked the question: when you get into the small cards, are those novelty, or were those designed for any particular, for travel, or were there any particular design in mind for those?
It was a novelty item, just like these. Here's a set of clear cards. They're clear. And then these are round cards. They weren't made for any purpose, just novelty, round ones. They even kind of, this company actually, I think this is the only kind of playing card they make. They're called uh, Raldo, and they're the round playing card company. So
This overstuffed house came up with a question that I wanted to make sure that we touch on. So she's talking about he or she, I apologize, I don't know who that is. Somewhere in a box, I have a deck of Delta Airlines and then also American Airlines. Now, one of the things that we had talked, and you'd shown your United, and I had that deck of United ones, and I think if I dated those, they were from the 70s.
right.
I have a set of Lufthansa cards. So that's for an airline. So all the airlines we're talking about still exist. But I also have a deck of cards from a non-existent airline. So can you talk a little bit about the collecting world of when you're dealing with kind of the cross collectibles, things, the difference between things of companies that still exist. So this is kind of a drifting into that advertising again, but how the difference you see in the market of collecting existing companies versus companies that have gone, and in some cases famously, like a deck of Enron cards would probably be worth a fortune.
Yeah.
For the companies that have infamously gone out of business, how do the prices of those change?
The prices of those change a great deal because you're going to see that companies I think in anything that you collect, if it's a company that's out of business, it's going to be worth more than a company that's still, in business. Just for the pure nature of they don't exist anymore. So no more, they're never going to make those cards anymore. There's no reason to. Where if you have a current airline, they could come out with another set of cards that are just a different year.
And I'm assuming that, and this is somewhat generic, but I'm assuming that the reason they're more valuable is because you then have the people that collect those airlines are fighting for them.
Yeah.
Who tends to end up getting them? Do people who collect cards, do they particularly care that they have an airline that no longer exists, or is it really they're more expensive because it's the people that are collecting those airline memorabilia and they know that there's no more of it? So I guess one of the questions would be then where's the best place to sell it?
The best place to sell it is there is actually in the Netherlands, there is a large group of playing card collectors that get together and they trade playing cards, they buy from each other. They actually have a convention there. And if you go onto the website of, hang on, because I have it here. There is a website. It's called Collectors Weekly, and it's for playing cards. That couple actually lives in the Netherlands, and they do participate in these. And so they put out Collectors Weekly, and those would advertise. They say a lot more about the cards, and it's mainly
so like a newsletter that they do every week.
It's kind of a newsletter, but it's it's online. But they are going over basically the different types of a lot of them are mainly advertised collectors. So they're going to be looking for the companies that are out of business. Those are going to be the first ones they look for. They're also going to be the most expensive ones. Then you have you have the collectors who collect the jokers. So they're going to be taking things out. They actually talk about when they first started out collecting playing cards. Now this couple now has over 4,000 different decks of playing cards. But when they first started out, there's a story in there about how they got kind of rooked. They saw this great set, great case, great. They thought this was, the set that they wanted. They went and they were so excited they bought the set. And then as they're walking out, they open it up and realize that it's not what the box advertised. And it didn't have all the cards. So, there is a lesson to be learned there. Look, make sure you have all the cards, and you always want to make sure you include the jokers, because that's if more and more people are collecting the full deck of cards, other than the collectors who were just collecting jokers. That's kind of phased out a little bit. You're still going to have those people, but even on eBay, if I'm interested in a deck, I immediately send them a message and ask them if it's a full deck, including the jokers. Because, yes, they will advertise that it's a full deck, but most people don't also count the jokers as part of the deck. So always ask that, because
I'll also echo what you were saying, because this is something that Laura and I found by accident as we were prepping for this. I have several double decks that I got through with those plastic boxes. And even though I went through and made sure that the cards were there, what I was not paying attention to is, again, look at the ace of spades. That's how you're going to know who made the deck.
Yep.
Every single double deck I have has two different manufacturers' cards in it.
Yep.
So they were sold as double decks, but they had no relation at all, other than the fact that they were two full decks. So yes, that is definitely something to look at. Because at this point now, I feel like really all I have are non-special individual deck of an open deck, which you're saying is only going to sell for a couple of bucks.
Yeah.
There's really no value to those, at all. So be on the lookout for those in my next live sale. So we're really running out of time. And there was a couple of things I know that we'd also want to talk about, and you started touching on it. And it's the card games that are games that are tied to cards.
Right.
And so, you've drifted, like some of them are the individual decks. But if you get into things like bridge and canasta, I guess, pinochle, but that's a different deck. What type of collectability are we dealing with? Like, does it change? I don't even know. Like Whist, I know is a card game that exists, but I don't even know how you play it.
Yeah, that's what I was saying, is some of these just come out with their own. I had that one, the telephone one, and they come out with these specialty cards that are not really even playing cards. You can't do anything else with them. So most of the time, unless you're somebody who's playing pinochle or canasta, you can buy any set of cards and play games with. And, there's all kinds of games with just a regular deck of cards. You're talking about solitaire and war and who else? Spades, hearts.
Kings in the Corner and Gin Rummy. Those are suggestions from Katie.
And then, I have other advertising cards here, like Arizona, Mount Rushmore, Hershey's Kisses, Alaska, the Riviera. Now,
we have a specific question that came in from Michelle Ann. And I'm not 100% sure if I missed something in the chat. I apologize, Michelle Ann. So you're talking about Bazooka Joe cards. Weren't those trading cards? Like, did they actually do decks of cards?
I don't think I could be wrong, but
yeah, I'm thinking, are those the types that you would get like in the pack of gum? You would get like a card and you collected them.
Yeah.
So I think that drifts into a whole other category. Yeah. I'm going to be doing a deep dive on cigarette cards, and that was like
cigarette cards are worth a fortune right now.
Yeah, I'll be on the lookout for the fundraiser. Vintageous just donated two complete sets of cigarette cards they're worth quite a bit, and I'm hesitant. I hope they'll bring the money. Otherwise, I'll sell them on Etsy and donate the money that comes that way.
I just saw a binder of 250 cigarette cards, and it went for nearly $400.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's about the prices Vintageous had found. So evidently Bazooka Joe did a deck of cards. Like they must have issued a specific deck.
Yeah, it would be dependent on what company made them. Is it a company that's now been consumed by the large company? Because that makes a difference. If that specific company is no longer in business, then you're talking about again, collectors who are out there collecting things that are out of business. You know, I showed you this set of, this is the Riviera in Las Vegas. This was imploded. These are going to be worth some money down the road. Maybe not tomorrow, but they will eventually. Couple other just quick ones I wanted to show you. This is a set. Now these are opened, but this is actually a set of Congress playing cards, and it's actually a triple deck. One deck is not opened, but so that's a Congress. See, it's a much fancier case. Probably the one that I love the most is this one. This is a set of Congress playing cards. You can see it's silk lined. It says Congress right here. And these are 6 unopened Congress playing cards. And I paid $10 for this. And it's worth a lot more than that. I think somebody who had it didn't know what they had, because that is worth a lot more.
Well, even the box with the 4 suits on there would sell for more than $10, regardless of being Congress, because just gambling is collectible in and of itself. And I would have loved to have been able to dip into that, but we are already at the top of the hour. So I think the only other question. Actually, the only other question was if we went, really went in reverse. There was still a couple of questions about the history and how it compared to tarot cards and things like that. And I apologize. I don't think we're really going to have time to do that. There's some great information, not on Wikipedia. There's some great information on YouTube or on Google that does talk about the suits. And it's actually very interesting. And also about how some of that art developed. So I would definitely encourage you to do that. I did not know the kings had names. So let's just start with that. So there's a whole bit of information that we're not going to cover. So I apologize. Was there any other major areas that you wanted to be able to cover, Laura?
I think that the only, I'm trying to look real quick. I have so much information here. I mean, if you want something specific and I can probably figure it out for you if I don't have it sitting here. Yeah,
so Laura is available through Instagram at Bemos_Mercantile. So definitely watch for her there. And she's great, a great resource to ask. And I think as a great closing comment coming in from this overstuffed house, there is a collector's market for just about everything. You just have to find them. And that is exactly what this is all about. So hopefully as you are all out and about and coming across the cards, you will know, unlike me, which ones to buy and can focus on if you want to resell them or build a collection. As she mentioned, many of these decks, even sealed decks, don't really go for that huge amount of money.
The only thing left is if you guys want more information on, I do have collector's guides here. Now, I just want to say real quick, this guy does advertising only, playing card, but I don't like his book only because you see all the pictures here, but no values. You actually have to go in the back, look up the page number, look up what position on the page that card was to get any other information. Where this guy covers everything. And this is, I think this is Mark. Yeah, Mark. He covers everything. And when you look at it, his values are right underneath the picture of the card. So it's a lot easier reference. Plus, he does give a history in the front of the book.
Oh, great. Well, that other one was basically planning himself to do 2nd and 3rd editions because it'd be a lot easier to reprint an edition if all you have to do is change the index than change every individual card. But for us users, that's we want to have it a little bit easier. So that's great information to have on those catalogs, the collector's books, because it is interesting. It's a fairly low threshold of entry to either start collecting or reselling. And the more information you have, as Laura really kind of outlined, the more information you have, particularly if you're trying to relist it, the more you're going to be able to get. You're
Yeah.
going to be able to put those keywords in there, the key names, highlight the fact, tell somebody right off the bat that yes, this is a complete deck with the 2 jokers.
Right.
Give them as much information as you can. Take those photographs. If it's an open deck, show photos of damage. They're true collectors are going to recognize that, and they're going to pay you for it because you're doing the research for them. So it's they're fun to collect. They're small. A lot of games use cards, so it's one of those cases that they can even be functional. So this was a lot of fun. So I appreciate so many people joining in the chat tonight. Thank you thank you so much for all the great questions. Really appreciate Laura giving up her time and expertise once again to honor me with her presence and the deep dive. So again, thanks everyone for joining. Thanks for giving your time, and thanks for putting your trust in Trusty Huckster. Have a great night, everybody. Bye-bye.